Imagine, it is 1879. You are standing in the ruins of ancient Babylon, the dust of a collapsed empire underfoot, the air thick with the heat of a Mesopotamian afternoon. You are Hormuzd Rassam, an archaeologist moving methodically through centuries of rubble. Then your fingers close around something small. A cylinder, covered in the angular impressions of a forgotten script, no larger than your forearm. A cylinder found in the ruins of Babylon in 1879 would eventually be read as an ancient Persian king's proclamation, a document created, according to Wikipedia, following the Persian conquest of Babylon in 539 BC. And its content would be compared to a text that claimed to have named that king, and predicted that conquest, long before it happened. The cylinder now sits in the British Museum under registration number 1880-0617.1941. Its script is Akkadian cuneiform. Its translation has been independently verified by Assyriologists at multiple institutions. And what some historians read when they placed this cylinder alongside an ancient Hebrew text raises one of the most uncomfortable questions in the archaeology of religion. What do you do with a prophecy that seems to have gotten the future right? The artifact is known as the Cyrus Cylinder. According to Wikipedia, it is an ancient clay cylinder, now broken into several pieces, on which is written an Achaemenid royal inscription in Akkadian cuneiform script in the name of the Persian king Cyrus the Great. It dates from the 6th century BC and was discovered in the ruins of the ancient Mesopotamian city of Babylon in 1879. It was excavated by Hormuzd Rassam, and its translation has been independently verified by Assyriologists at multiple institutions. According to Wikipedia, the cylinder was created and used as a foundation deposit following the Persian conquest of Babylon in 539 BC, when the Neo-Babylonian Empire was invaded by Cyrus and incorporated into his Persian Empire. The cylinder was excavated from the ruins of Babylon and is now held in the British Museum. Its translation is not contested. Its physical existence is not contested. What has been debated by historians, theologians, and philologists since the late 19th century is what its content means when read alongside a specific text from the Hebrew Bible. Scholars who argue for a pre-exilic dating contend that passages in Isaiah, often called the Cyrus Oracle, name Cyrus explicitly and describe his political role, including the liberation of displaced peoples. This claim about the text's content is held by pre-exilic scholars but cannot be verified from the artifact sources reviewed here. The question of when those passages were written, before Cyrus existed or after, is among the most consequential and genuinely unresolved debates in the study of the ancient world. The cylinder does not answer that question. But it made the question impossible to ignore. The cylinder's inscription, according to researchers who have published on the artifact, including Finkel, cited in a 2013 publication from the British Museum Press, records Cyrus presenting himself not merely as a conqueror but as a restorer. Scholars who have studied the inscription, including Finkel, 2013, have noted details of how Cyrus presented himself within the cylinder's text, though readers should consult the source directly to confirm specific characterizations. Scholars of the ancient Near East have argued, though this claim is not sourced in the materials reviewed here, that this framing, a foreign conqueror positioning himself as an instrument of local gods, was not unusual for Mesopotamian royal inscriptions. Rulers regularly adapted their ideological presentation to the religious expectations of newly conquered populations. What made this cylinder significant to modern scholars was not its form but its content, and what that content appeared to echo in a text from an entirely different civilization. Imagine, the cylinder is being inscribed, pressed into soft clay in Babylon, sometime in the months after the conquest of 539 BC. The scribe does not know, cannot know, that this object will spend the next 24 centuries in the earth, that Hormuzd Rassam will pull it from the ground in 1879, and that when scholars hold it alongside a Hebrew text they have studied for centuries, the conversation in the room will change entirely. The Hebrew text in question contains passages that refer to Cyrus by name, describing him as a figure chosen to fulfill a specific political role, including the liberation of displaced peoples, a reading engaged extensively in the scholarly literature on the period. This is, on its surface, a striking alignment with what the cylinder itself records. But the Isaiah authorship question must be addressed directly here, because it determines everything about what that alignment means. The traditional view, held by many religious scholars and some secular historians, is that the relevant portions of the book of Isaiah were composed before Cyrus existed. If this dating is accepted, the naming of a specific foreign king, to fulfill a specific political role, before he was born, represents a category of documented prediction with very few parallels in the surviving ancient literature. Under this reading, the cylinder is not just a political document, it is independent, non-biblical corroboration of something the Hebrew text had already said. The critical scholarly view is substantially different. A significant body of modern biblical scholarship, applying linguistic, literary, and historical analysis to the Hebrew text, argues that the book of Isaiah as it survives was composed by at least two different authors, or was edited substantially by later writers. Under this framework, the passages that name Cyrus were written after the Persian conquest. Writers working in the prophetic tradition, who had already witnessed the events, used the form of prophecy to give theological meaning to history that had already occurred. Many scholars in modern biblical studies argue this position, and it has been engaged extensively in the scholarly literature on the period. Researchers including Bryant, P., whose 2002 study on the Persian Empire is cited as a standard reference on this era, work with this history in its full political context. Neither position can be dismissed as uninformed. Both are held by scholars who have spent careers with the relevant languages and texts. The Cyrus Cylinder itself cannot resolve this debate, it does not reference the Hebrew Bible, and it makes no claim about what any other civilization had written. What it does, independently and in Akkadian cuneiform, is confirm that the political events described, a Persian king conquering Babylon in 539 BC, presenting himself as a liberator of displaced peoples, are historically attested by a non-biblical source. Let us be precise about what the Cyrus Cylinder is and what it is not. It is a baked clay foundation deposit, excavated in 1879, inscribed in Akkadian cuneiform, its translation independently verified by Assyriologists at multiple institutions. It is a 6th century BC document. The cylinder itself, as an Akkadian language royal inscription, makes no explicit reference to the Hebrew people, Jerusalem, or the God described in the Hebrew scriptures, a point worth noting when evaluating cross-textual parallels. Whatever parallels exist between its content and the book of Isaiah, the cylinder is an Akkadian language royal inscription written for a Babylonian audience, operating within the conventions of Mesopotamian political communication. The two texts were produced in different languages, for entirely different audiences, with no documented connection between them. The cylinder is also physically incomplete. According to Wikipedia, it is now broken into several pieces. The surviving text is therefore a fragment of whatever the original inscription contained. Arguments built on the precision of the cylinder's content must account for the possibility that portions of that content did not survive. And the Isaiah authorship question, which the cylinder cannot resolve and does not address, means that the most consequential claim associated with this artifact, the claim of predictive prophecy confirmed by external archaeology, remains a claim that depends entirely on a prior question: when were the relevant passages actually written? The cylinder confirms that Cyrus conquered Babylon in 539 BC. He appears, on the basis of the inscription as scholars have translated it, to have presented himself as a restorer of displaced peoples, a reading consistent with published analyses of the cylinder's text. It does not confirm that any text predicted this before it happened. These limitations are not minor caveats to be mentioned and moved past. They are what separates honest engagement with the evidence from the version of this story that circulates as settled fact. And yet something interesting happens when you sit with those limitations honestly. The Cyrus Cylinder was not found alongside the Hebrew Bible. It was found in the ruins of an ancient Mesopotamian city, written in a Mesopotamian language, for a Mesopotamian audience. Its translation was independently verified by Assyriologists at multiple institutions. What is disputed is its significance. If the Isaiah passages that name Cyrus were written after the Persian conquest, as a large portion of modern biblical scholarship holds, then the cylinder confirms history and nothing more. It tells us that a Persian king did what a biblical text later described, because that text was composed by writers who had already seen it happen. The two documents point at the same historical moment from different directions, and the moment itself is not remarkable. If the Isaiah passages predate Cyrus, as religious traditions and a portion of scholars maintain, then what sits in the British Museum is independent corroboration of one of the most specific predictive claims preserved in any ancient document. A foreign ruler, named in advance. His political function, described before he exercised it. The cylinder, on this reading, is not just history. It is confirmation of something that should not, by ordinary historical logic, have been possible to know. Archaeology, in this case, has done what it so often does, confirmed that events happened, while leaving the hardest question entirely open. The conquest of Babylon in 539 BC is historically attested. The cylinder is real. Its cuneiform is readable. What it means that a Hebrew text appears to have described that conquest, that is a question that depends on evidence the cylinder itself does not contain. The Cyrus cylinder will sit in the British Museum for as long as the museum stands. Scholars will continue to debate when the relevant passages of the Hebrew Bible were written. The Akkadian cuneiform will continue to say what it has always said. The question worth sitting with is not whether the Bible is true. That is a question archaeology will never fully answer, and probably cannot answer, because it is not ultimately a question about artifacts. The question is a simpler one: how do you weigh a document that was never meant to be evidence for anything other than a Persian king's political legitimacy against a text that claims to have seen him coming? That question became possible to ask in 1879, when Hormuzd Rassam pulled the cylinder from the Babylonian soil. It has not been answered in the century and a half since. What you do with that open question, that is, in the end, entirely up to you.